Hi, in this video I'm going to show you 3 easy to follow hacks that's going to take your fitness to super levels. Let's go. Hi, Scott here from Kinetic Cycle Coaching. You're not subscribed yet? Why not? You're going to get great content, live chat every week, and if you stick around to the end of this video, I'm going to show you how you can actually come and train with me live every week. Okay, let's get into it. Point number 1, time. So here's something really interesting. A lot of training plans that are automated and you may possibly be following will tell you to increase time as a metric weekly. That time therefore equates to extra volume. That extra volume is going to drive extra overload in your system. And if you maintain on the plan, this extra volume will create more TSS, training stress score. You will progress because the greater overload on the system, therefore the greater recovery adaptation. Simple, isn't it? It's not. It's bullshit. And the reason it's bullshit is because you don't have suddenly extra hours that you can just pull out of a cupboard, pull out of your pocket. They're not there. And this is a fundamental issue where a lot of people go wrong. They'll say, hey Scott, I'd like to train with you. I've got 10 hours a week. And I'll probably say, does that mean 6 hours or 12 hours? What do you mean? Well, nobody's really got a number of hours that they can actually pull out and say we can do that every week. Because if you follow life structure, family, work, and then all those other things that always just appear at the last minute, whereby work pulls you in another direction, family pulls you in another direction. So your training time is not a metric that's set in tablets of stone. It's not something that's guaranteed every single week. We must play around and weave into the pillars of life of work, family and health. They will dictate how much time you've got. So what you've got to look at is if you've got 6 hours, it may be one week you've got 6, the following week you've got 4, the next week you may have 8. But the key thing is you need to maximize the time you've got from day one, not hold back and think, well, I'll add 2 hours next week, 2 hours the following week. So if you're following a plan that's dictating that time must be added as a key volume, as a key metric, as a key driver for training stress, stop now. Because all that's going to happen is your time will fluctuate, meaning you'll have greater overload some weeks than you can manage, than you can recover from. And that will just break you down. And it will also demotivate you because you'll feel as if you're just throwing sessions in here, there and everywhere. No, if you've got 6 hours maximum, you start with that today. Number 2, the structure of your workouts needs to have a breakthrough session every week. And I mean from now, from the winter. What does breakthrough mean? Well, I want you to think about where your threshold's at, where your body is comfortable at beating down lactic acid at that 4 millimoles per litre. That's really crucial that you're able to then go all the way through. And I mean not just over. We don't want to be working round about threshold at winter. The reason being, it requires longer workouts that create longer periods of stress on the body, so bigger recovery times. And frequency, my friends, is key during the winter. We need to turn up regularly. High intensity workouts have become incredibly popular, sexy, trendy over the last few years. And yes, over 30 to 40 minutes, there will be a boost to your endurance markers. And I say boost because it doesn't necessarily mean a change, a long-term change. I want you to ask yourself, I've been doing the same winter training, Scott, for 5, 6, 7 years. I don't seem to make much progress with my FTP or my time over 10 mile time trials or my time up that favourite climb. What's going on? The reason is that you're may not making a cellular change, a skeletal change to your system that's necessary. And what I mean by that is cardiovascular density and mitochondrial density. HIIT workouts, we will use them in my programs, they're great, but they may not necessarily have the mitochondrial density adaptations that you need. To get that, we need to get out and we need to go over 90 minutes, 2 hours, 3 hours. We need to strip the stored fuel out of the muscles, out of the blood, and really get the body into resynthesizing more and more glucose and oxygen, and trying to elongate that point where fatigue kicks in. And that's crucial. And we need to do that at particular zones, zone 2, zone 3. But you may not have massive amounts of time. And that's why workouts that will inject small doses of lactic acid and then absorb it. They will inject small periods whereby you're under stress and then you absorb it. But the trouble is, on short workouts, most people are driven by their ego. Yeah, this thing gets in the way. Or things like Strava and uploading average speed. Don't become to Strava. Don't become someone who's addicted to uploading for others. You've got to generate development at yourself. And at particular low intensities, you will produce a higher cardiovascular system. You will generate more capillary networks. You will generate those power plants, more mitochondrial. So how do we do that? We do that through zone 2 work, but spiking it with surges. If you want to know more about that, stay on to the end and I'll show you some workouts that you can get involved in whereby I'll take you through those steps. Number 3, feeding versus fueling. This is really important. You need to understand the difference between feeding the body for life, to cope with the stresses of work, family, whatever is being thrown at you. Then you need to treat training separately. We need to fuel properly for training. If you cross the two over and then use the example, I'm only exercising, Scott, so I can get my ass in my favourite trousers. I'm only exercising because I've just joined Tinder and I want to get a date. What? You can't do that for the long term. Sure, you'll get a boost, remember? But you won't get a change. And it's change that we want. It's long-term change. So I'm only going to go over the highlights here. Join me in more videos where I'll really dive into how you can lose weight and keep it off forever. Your natural BMR, your body's requirements per day are going to fluctuate between anywhere between 1,600 to 2,500. Now here's the thing, if you drop below 1,000 to 1,200 calories per day in the feeding format, you could fall into what we call metabolic shock. Metabolic shock is whereby the body starts to change the way it uses food groups to service energy. And the big problem for athletes is it starts to hold on to fat. There's not enough glycogen coming into the system because you've gone on this crazy low sugar diet and you've cut out carbs. Why? And the reason is you're now using proteins to service the very muscles that you're trying to develop. Now remember, during the recovery phase, it's a resynthesis of proteins. The body moves from catabolic into anabolic. As it moves into anabolic, it heals stronger, fitter, faster. And it's at that point we want to then apply our key session, our breakthrough session, our punch session, our VO2 session, whereby we can hit higher levels because the muscles, like your phone, are charged up fully. The trouble is, most athletes don't feed well and they certainly don't fuel well, so even though they think they're working hard, the body has not charged up enough to punch through that ceiling height that your fitness is at. And that, ladies and gentlemen, is why you arrive either halfway through winter or the end of winter at the same bloody point you're at every single year. The first thing I want you to do is to get an idea of what your muscle and your fat percentage is. I'll leave a link in the description for the live session that I did whereby I go through that in more detail. Once you've got those numbers, you've got a good starting point because for women, If you can even get 30% fat, 30% muscle, you're in a great position. But if you lose mass, you'll lose fat and muscle together. So if you've got 35% fat and 25% muscle, but you've lost 5 kilograms and you're on the phone, hey Scott, I've lost 5 kilograms. I can get my ass in that little black dress. Woohoo! I'll say, wait a minute, you haven't changed the fat percentage. All that's going to happen when you start eating at that party and drinking, that weight will go back on in a week. Oh, what? Yes, we need to then flip and get that muscle to 35% and the fat to 25%. And the way we do that is through key training, through resistance training, using our own body weight. Again, I'll put a link in for the couple of workouts that I've just created that will go through strength, core stability, exercises you can do every single day. If that's not a mind shake-up for you, then what are you waiting for? You're probably shouting at me saying, Scott, I don't want to put muscle on. I'm not asking you to put muscle on. You've got muscle in that body with fibres that are just not getting used. We want to recruit more fibres. By recruiting more fibres, we'll increase that muscle percentage that's active. So you need to have clear strategy. Your feeding strategy needs to work around your BMR, but all you need to do is start to clean up the foods that are adding inflammation to your system. That could be a game changer for most people. I'll leave a link in the description for a group of foods that I have a lot of athletes actually build a full-time diet around. These are low inflammation foods and they're really helpful if you're looking to start to clean up your diet. Start to look at where you're getting your carbohydrates from and start to look at the regularity of your meals. You should be eating 4, 5, 6 meals a day rather than just bulking it all into one large meal at the end of the day. Now start to look at your fueling strategy. Start to look at your longer rides. How are you fueling going in and what are you doing during and after? If your ride goes over 2 hours, you need to make sure at that 2-hour point or just before that you're starting to service the muscles with at least 20 grams of carbohydrate every half hour. Your body can only oxidize 1 gram per minute, so you don't have to overfeed it. But during your training, remember, you need to be able to turn up every other day or at least 4 days a week. So you need to fuel those muscles, because if you starve them during the ride, and you may say to me, hey Scott, I can do 2 hours with my eyes closed, no problem. The trouble is you're still burning calories. And post-ride, you have a hormonal change that will drive your body to seek out more calories. And the chances are you'll get poor calories during that time because you'll be craving things really, really quickly. So make sure you keep your phone charged, like your muscles. Just think of your muscles like your phone. Where would you be without it if it wasn't charged up? Keep charging. So keep them topped up. So if you're going to ride for 2.5 hours, boom, 2 hours, I've got 30 grams. What's that, Scott? Well, a banana roughly is 25 to 30 grams. That's half an hour of fuel on the bike. As soon as you finish, you've got that window of 20 minutes. Even a glass of milk will satisfy the needs that the body's got. And then after those long rides, 2 hours, you have a meal that's basically made up of the key components of the carbs, the fats and the proteins. If you're training indoors, make sure that you're pre-weighing in and post-weighing out to measure fluid loss. So if you're losing half a litre of fluid, that needs to be replaced normally within 4 hours. But if it's an evening session, I would add that onto the next day so that you've got a strategy for fueling. So not only are you adding on the 500 millilitres you've lost, there may be a passive sweat of 250 to 500. You may have drunk a 500 millilitre bottle during the 1 hour ride. Suddenly you're up to 1.5 litres that needs to be replaced in that 4 hour window. And this can build up. This can build up over a week if you're not really replacing it. Suddenly you get to the weekend where you're really looking forward to getting outside. You don't feel too good. You're just suffering from a little bit of dehydration. And remember, in the feeding and fueling, there's an electrolyte balance that you need to get. And I'm not talking about just buying a hydro tab or an electrolyte tab from your local shop. Maybe you need to address these electrolytes and add and supplement them, not just through your food, but maybe through other things. And you need to look at that carefully, because electrolyte loss can have the same effects as dehydration. And sometimes that nagging headache that we've got is not necessarily dehydration. You might be drinking really well, and in fact you may be flushing electrolytes out because you're drinking so much. But just adding sometimes a few electrolytes from something like Himalayan pink salt can change the way that you feel overnight. Okay, that's 3 really simple, easy points to follow. Time, maximize it from day 1. Structure, try and work between zone 2 and zone 3, and then have a breakthrough session at zone 5. And number 3, feeding and fueling. Get your feeding right. Don't starve yourself. It's not worth it. You will lose weight, but you'll only get a boost of that loss. It will come back on. Find out what your muscle is. Find out what your fat is and really attack that. You may keep the same mass for a period of time, but your body shape will change and you'll just feel great. Well, maybe not that great. You made it to the end of the video. Well done. I promised you that little bonus. So, if you want to boost your training, why not come and train with me? I'm doing sessions live on YouTube every week, whereby I'm going to take you through surgeries, key breakthrough sessions at VO2 anaerobic capacity. Zone 2 into zone 3, we're going to do decoupling exercises, show you how to use heart rate and power. I'm going to give you bike fit tips. I'm going to give you more nutrition tips as I deliver the coaching session. All you've got to do is subscribe, hit the notification bell, and you're going to get warned at least 24, 48 hours before I go live. And if you miss them live, get them on catch up. Okay folks, you stay safe and I'll see you in the next video. And remember, anyone can train hard, but there's only a few of us can train smart.